Hello! So today we're going to be taking a look at an airport that's been sent to me by some developers. Their website is Gear Down Simulations. I'm not sure the airport is actually available for sale yet, but it will be shortly. It's the airport is in Sao Paulo in Brazil. It's called Aeroporto Internacional De Guarulhos. So we're going to go and have a look around it. So I'm going to be flying the BAE 146 out of here, by the way. I've removed other ground traffic just to improve the frame rate as we look around the airport. So as you know, if you have ground traffic in the simulator, it massacres the frame rate. So I wanted to give this a fair crack of the whip. So we're going to go and have a look around some of the buildings around the airport and just see what's been included and how well it's been modelled. So you've got various outbuildings. Got some really nicely modelled gates actually. And then if we jump up into the air, let's come into this from the public side. So if we fly up into the air, you can see it's quite an involved structure with all the car parks and the roads and the supply routes in. So if we come down into the airport, you can see a lot of the road signage has been put in as well. It's very good. Going through the toll gates. Hundreds of cars in the car parks. I'll just turn the speed down a bit on the cameras, on the drone camera. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of attention to detail in here. Very impressive. But by the same token though, they've been very careful not to overdo it with the 3D structures that would kill the frame rate, as I said. So it's not going to be hugely affecting on your aircraft when you visit here. So it hasn't got interiors modelled as far as I'm aware. It's got some bits and pieces here and there that are like the fake interiors you sometimes see in the buildings in Flight Simulator. I always think that's tremendously clever how that's done. It's a trick of the eye with textures. If you ever fly along, there's lots of logistics storage areas around the place as well. So we've got the cargo terminals. But yeah, there's a lot to it. This is a big, sprawling airport. So yeah, it's just outside of Sao Paulo. See, there's a building construction site going on over on this corner of the airfield as well. In terms of runways, the two main runways, a couple of taxiways, various networks to get to them. Okay, so we've had a little look around the airport. Should we go and jump back to our aeroplane and go and get it fired up? And we're going to fly from here down to Santos Dumont at Rio de Janeiro. So that's half the reason we've chosen the BAE 146 is because it's a very short runway at Santos Dumont. Just before we leave here, let's go and descend back down and have a look at the further end of the airfield where there's some hangars here. Just have a little look around these hangars. I imagine these are service hangars. But it's nice that they haven't got static aircraft in them. Therefore you can put your own aircraft in them, if that makes any sense. Quite often in Flight Simulator in the scenery you'll find static aircraft built into the scenery, and it kind of ruins it if you're wanting to use those features of the scenery yourself. Okay, let's go and jump back into the air then. There's our lone little aeroplane sat on the tarmac. So I'm going to jump back from the drone camera to inside the aeroplane, and we'll whiz through firing up the BAE 146. So batteries go on. I'm just going to check the volume levels, making sure I'm okay. Yeah, it's looking good. Okay, so batteries 1 and 2 go to on, then we go overhead and we put the nav lights to high int, no smoking sign goes to auto, cabin emergency goes to armed, and then yaw dampers 1, 2, AP masters, avionics A and B go to on, the anti-skid goes to on, lift spoilers yellow and green go to on. I'm just reading down my own checklist here, so bear with me. So in the lower part of the overhead panel, on the electrical section, we're going to go and put the bus tie AC and DC to on, standby inverters and standby generators to on. The APU generator goes to on, and then put the left inner pump on, then we can start the APU. So you'll see the RPM of the APU increase there. While we're waiting for that, flight deck emergency lights can go to armed. We just wait for this to come up to speed just to make sure it does. As soon as it does, you'll see a light come on and various systems should kick in around the cockpit. There we go. APU power is available. So we can go back to the central console now and we can turn on the yaw dampers. Then we can go back into the cockpit. We can arm the oxygen systems for both the pilot and the co-pilot. Whoa, I've got a crazy pilot in here. Let's go and fix that before we go any further. So let's go into the MISC section and give ourselves some halfway sensible pilots, shall we? Who should we have today? That will do. Apply. Go back. Resume. Okay, let's go around our co-pilot. Engage the oxygen system for her as well. Okay, so oxygen is done. So then we go overhead again and we set the center tank transfer to auto. And I'm just trying to remember where that is. So here we go. Ice protection goes to on and then recover it. Front pedestal, control 5, we go and turn the comm radios on. And then in the tablets, if we've got a flight plan from SimBrief, this is where we would go and fetch it. We haven't, so we're not going to be bothering with that today. We're just going to fly the aeroplane. And again, if we were using this correctly, we could go and say start boarding. So if we do that, you get all the sounds, so it sounds quite fun around the aeroplane with things happening. So you can hear passengers getting on. What else? Control 3 takes us to the instrument panel. Flight directors. We need to have on. Now I'm resisting going and clicking any of these pads or anything. I'll explain why in a moment. So I'm going to go and switch on the nav radios and turn them on. Switch on the nav 2 radio. It took a while, didn't it? And then we calibrate the altimeter. So just press B to do that. Calibrate the directional gyros. And right, we're going to go down and sort out the UNS-1. So let's zoom in down here, turn the power on, and we're going to program the basics of our route into the UNS-1. If I can remember how. Great music in the background. I hope it doesn't cause a copyright strike. So we'll accept the databases, and then we'll go to the flight plan page, and we're going to put in where we are departing from. So we'll do all this by hand today. SBGR. So SBGR, and press enter. Guarulhos. Guarulhos. I can never say it. It's such a foreign language to me. It's Portuguese, I believe. Guarulhos. That's better. Then we're going via a SID, which we don't program, and a star, which, sorry, a star and then, yeah, SID and then a star, which I won't program in, we do them later. And then we're going to end up at Santos Dumont, which is Sierra Bravo Romeo Juliet. Sierra Bravo Romeo Juliet, enter. Santos Dumont, accept. Then we go to the menu button and we go and set our departure. So we're going to take off on runway 10 right using the NIBA 2A with oh, that's the transition for the approach, not for the departure. So yeah, just NIBA 2A off of 10 right then. So 10 right is number 2. So press enter. NIBA 2A is number 3. Press enter. There is no option for a transition on the SID. So then we go back to menu and we go to arrive. And we're going to be arriving runway 2 right. So 02 right is number 2. We are going to be doing the MOVGI transition. We're not using a star. That's interesting. Let's see if there are any available. Show arrival procedures. We've only got an approach sketched in at the moment. So we're coming into 2 right, aren't we? Let's see if any of these make sense to us to do. Some of them are quite crazy, aren't they? I guess that allows us to see some scenery on the way, even if it does zigzag all over the place. But that's probably a bit more sensible. So we'll insert that onto our route, and that will give us at least something to program for the aeroplane to follow. So we're going to be doing then the ASAL 1B star. So ASAL 1B is number 2. Press enter, and then we're doing a MOVGI, but that's part of the transition, not part of the star. So if you wanted to use a transition, let's see if there are any good ones that we could pick from. That's actually a really good one, isn't it? So if we insert that, we'll use the Kevin transition then. Enter. And then the approach we're going to be using is a very specific one, because we want this part of it, and this only appears on the RNAV-T 02 right approach. So RNAV 02, see, T isn't listed on here. This is interesting, isn't it? So let's see if we put number 3 in. Does it know what we're talking about?
Cabin crew, arm doors and cross-check.
I might double check this in Navigraph, you know, just to make sure that we pick the right thing. So the transition was the MOVGI transition, wasn't it? Just looking on here, so there it is, number 3. And press enter. And come back to the flight plan. So if we go and step through this to further through the plan, yeah, it's not doing it. Look, it's got nothing there for it in the flight. But then we can go manual anyways, because as soon as we get to MOVGI, we could navigate our own way in, but we could also program the route. Let's just go double check this in Navigraph, because this is looking a bit odd. So in Navigraph we'll unload what we've got, do a new flight, and we can base it on this. We can go and copy the flight plan description, paste it in here, and that doesn't understand this at all. Look, so select O2 right, add to route, arrivals, select. It's actually the approach we're more interested in. Let's cancel that for the moment. Select. Now we want RNAV-T. There it is. It's just not in the aeroplane then. And there's the MOV-key transition. That's interesting that it's not in the aeroplane, because it's got the up-to-date air rack. And then on the approaches we went for the... Now what was it we used? ASAL 1B and the Kevin transition. Okay, so did that have any restrictions on it? So above 9,000 feet, below 11,000 feet at Kevin, basically. The SID is quite controlled as well. It's going to be a fun one, isn't it? But that didn't appear in the aeroplane. Let's just have one more look at that. So if we go and look at arrive again. So we were going for 02 right, number 2, enter. ASAL 1B, number 2, enter. The Kevin transition, number 1, enter. And RNAV-T, unless it, no, it's only saying there's one page. RNAV-T is not there. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? So we could always program it by hand, of course. So we'll put those in, and we're doing the MOV-key transition, and go back to the flight plan. So if we go down and look at that again, so we're on page 1 of 4. So RJ048. Where has it navigated us to then? 311. Let's go previous, because we can always change all of this. So MOV-key, to make it match this, we actually want to go to RJ222 after MOV-key. Okay, so we select the one we want to go on top of, and we go RJ222, but we actually want to get rid of that in a minute, so let's just delete that for the moment. Whoops, sorry, wrong button. So RJ081, sorry, is the one we're not really sure of. So if we go next again, RJ048 either. So we want to completely reprogram this bit. So let's get rid of 048. Delete it. Go previous page. 081, we don't want that either. Delete. Delete. So then we're going to put things in between MOV-key and SBRJ. So we want RJ222. So we select that and we go RJ222 and press enter and accept. Then after RJ222 we want to go RJ706, so we'll go next page, select this again and say RJ706, RJ706 and press enter, and that will push the airport back down again. And then we'll go RJ704, so we select that again, RJ704 and press enter and accept. Now bear in mind we're going to have to calculate the heights, or we'll have a look in a moment. RJ807 is next. Let's just double check this to make sure we get these right. 807. I don't want to transpose any numbers basically and get a wildly different waypoint. So RJ702 is next. RJ702. Just double check that again. I'm double checking everything on this. And then RJ701 will line us up with the runway. So RJ701. Enter. Accept. So you can see we've got nothing programmed in on the right side here at the moment. So 701 we want above 326 feet. So let's see if we can select this. No, it's not going to let us. So we'll just have to manually descend on our way in. It's all fine now. Okay, so we've got our flight plan programmed in. We haven't gone in and had a look at the data here. So that's all looking fine. If you go to menu, that's all, yeah, that's just for setting the departure and arrival. So in performance, we haven't got many of the numbers filled in. Let's see what happens if we don't fill it in. I think it'll be an interesting exercise to try that. See if it makes any real difference to us. Okay, so we'll remove the chocks while we're here. And we're going to go and configure the MCP. So we are departing from Guarulhos at runway 10 right. So we'll set 100 degrees on the heading bug. So we're looking at the directional gyro down here. And it was already on 100 degrees, wasn't it? It's all good then. It's because we're pointing the same way as the runway. What am I doing? Setting up the cruise altitude. So what altitude are we going to be able to get up to cruise at? No more than about 18,000 feet, I wouldn't have thought. So we need to be... I'm just looking at the star here. So above 9,000 feet. Below 13. Well, yeah, so we're going to go to maybe 15 tops. So let's just go and do that. East is odd, remember. So we're travelling east, therefore we should be arriving at an odd altitude. So we'll arm that while we're here. That's 15,000 feet set. Okay, so that's pretty much everything we need to do here for the moment. We are going to switch this over to RNAV because we're going to be using GPS for navigation. The flight director is already on. We've done the MCP. So at this point, because we've got some data in there, although we haven't put the performance data in, that would have governed clicking on the flip chart, which sets the bugs for aircraft rotation on the runway. Okay, so it's pushback and engine start time. So overhead we go and put the fasten seatbelt sign on, and we can do pushback. So in this aircraft we do get some pushback tools. So I'm going to come off the parking brake and connect the truck to the aircraft. Let's sit up so we can see that happen. It's got that common bug here, look, where the truck is aligning to one side. That happens a lot at different airports. I'm not sure what the cause of it is. Some airports it happens, some it doesn't. But it will snap into place obviously once it's in the right place. While it's doing that, we can nip overhead and put the beacon light on. We can go and turn the pumps on as well. So control 7. Has he connected? I think he has. So we can initiate the pushback. So just looking at the airport here, we want to be pushed back and to the right. So we need that to go that way, please. And then while all of that is happening, we could actually get the engine starting sequence up and running. So we'll go start with engine number 4, and we'll put the starter on. And then we'll hit start. And you'll see the numbers coming up on engine number 4. Just keep an eye outside while we're doing this. Okay, so we can cancel the pushback now. And we'll put our parking brake back on for the moment. Waiting for engine number 4 to come up. So if we go outside, the engine is coming up. You can see the temperature rising there. So on the system overhead, we're ready to start the next engine. So engine number 3, and hit start. Same sequence again. We watch the speeds of both the axle and the turbofan, so we can go and oops. Sometimes the views in Flight Simulator make it very difficult to see where you need to be seeing. So we wait for the lights to go out up here. I wonder if the weather radar's working. Of course I haven't got the generators on yet, so no. Okay, number 2, and start. So you can see the numbers are coming up on engine number 2 now. Wait for the lights to go out again. There we go. And engine number 1. Should be getting a bit noisier outside now. See the air is still pouring out of the... It would help if I looked at what I was doing, wouldn't it? Air is pouring out of the APU still. So once all the engines are up and running, we're going to turn the generators on overhead. So we just wait for this to finish. Okay, so engines are up and running, so the starter selector can go to off, the start master can go to off, then generators 1 and 4 can go to on. Then let's just look overhead to do this easily, so then the packs can come on. Engine air, all of them go to on. Brake fans can go to auto, that's overhead, isn't it? Control 8. Brake fans can go to auto. Hydraulics, engine pumps 2 and 3 can go to on now. Control 7, all of the heaters can go to on. Goes into the middle. And we can go down to the taxi, so we're ready to taxi essentially, so we can tell the cabin crew to go and sit down. And put the landing lights to the down position, which is the taxi lights. And come off the parking brake. Set 18 degrees on the flaps. We're just check that my controls are configured correctly. So that's, no, we've got 24. Good job I checked it. There we go, 18 degrees. So let's go and at this point put the head tracking on, which is good. Have a look around, make sure we're good. And taxi. So out onto the taxiway. So yes, this is Guarulhos Airport. It's a huge sprawling airport. I will admit I've never been here before. So when the developers sent me the files for it, I was really intrigued to come and have a look. It just kind of reminds you that South America is just enormous, and for those of us in Europe, we probably don't explore this area as much as we should. There's an aircraft just leaving. Look, there's, oh no, it's obviously just arriving. It's another aircraft similar to us. So while we are taxiing, we'll go and turn on the thrust modulation system. Ready for our takeoff. Needs to be in takeoff mode. We can get rid of this off the screen for the moment, can't we? We don't need to do anything to do with the tablet at the moment. It's a great looking airport though, isn't it? And the markings on the ground are very good as well. So we're just waiting to get to the runway, and then we can deal with the rest of the lights configuration, and then we'll be on our way. Will be worth having a little look while we're taxiing at the departure, just to get an idea. So yeah, it's an immediate right turn, and then we're looking to get, we have to stay below 10,000 feet initially, so we could prepare ourselves for that and just set that for 9, whoops, set that for 9 for the moment, just to make sure we don't exceed the climb parameters. Let's just cycle the arming to make sure it takes effect on the number we want it to. Okay. So, which runway did we want? We want 10 right. Guessing this is 10 left. Oh no, it's the second taxiway, isn't it? So this is 10 left. There's the marking on the ground. Oh, we're going to have a race with the ice cream truck. Oh, he's much faster than us. So we're going to cross 10 right. Hopefully there's nothing coming. And go straight for 10 left. Okay, let's turn left. Okay, so back overhead, we want to go and put the strobes to on, and here we want to go and put the light switches to the up position, which is the landing lights, and then back down on the central console we want to go and put TCAS to on if it has it, and it does on this aircraft. Okay, that's us ready to go. So I'm going to turn the head tracking off for a moment and just pull us back a little bit in the cockpit.
TMS set to take off. Power set, flex achieved. Speed alive, both sides.
I'm going to turn the head tracking back on. I think it's quite useful because you get to see around as well. Whoa! Sudden burst of wind hit us then.
V1.
Okay, we're up.
Rotate.
That's quite funny. I pulled up a little bit early. I was concerned about the end of the runway coming at us. Okay. Let's put vertical speed on. Let's go for lateral navigation. And the airplane should turn right. And it's doing so. Coming up to 3,500 feet. Lift the flaps. Should we get rid of this out of the way now completely? It's that one, isn't it? There we go. So we're going to use pitch to moderate climb rate along the way. So let's see how quickly we are climbing. So we're making our way along here. Remember, we have to stay below 10,000 on the way out. So it's just coming up through 200 knots. So what we'll do is come off vertical speed. Just lift the nose a little bit more. Been blown around a little bit. So let's have a quick look at the chart here. The transition altitude is 8,000 feet. So once we get through 8,000, we're at 5,500 at the moment. We're already on 2992 though, so we don't have to do anything. That's all good. That makes our life easy today. Shall we look outside? There's the airfield disappearing behind us. So 7,000 feet we've just come up through. Let's turn the head tracking off now while we're concentrating on things in the cockpit. So we need to go to max continuous thrust. I wonder if we can get the weather radar to work. I thought it used to work. Maybe they've disabled it in this version too, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Anyway. So we've come up through 8,000 feet. I believe that was the transition altitude, wasn't it? Yeah. But we don't actually have any to do, so we're all good. So next point of note for us is at 10,000, but we're not going to get there because we're leveling out at 9, so we need to be aware. Oh, we're going too fast, look. I'm just going to put the spoilers out to get us back to 250 knots. Shouldn't be above 250 knots below 10,000 feet. So we're stuck at this altitude basically. So below 130, below, I think it was Nibru, wasn't it? That was below. Let's go and have a look at a little nav map. It had some more detail than the chart's got. Okay, that's in the star. So okay, we're good then. So below 10,000 was at, yeah, we can climb now to 12 then at least. If I can get this to behave itself. So we'll pull it up into the climb using trim. And then hold vertical speed for us. Bit more climb rate. We could use indicated airspeed mode, so if we do that at 250 knots and then any excess gets turned into climb rate until we get to our target altitude. Below 130, we'll stay below, I think, all the way through now, yeah, easily. So we can go up to our cruise height, which will be 15 for today's adventure. So again, I'll just re-arm 15,000 feet just to make sure it does that. We'll leave it climbing at 250. Let's go for max continuous thrust and push the throttles all the way forwards. You'll get arrows pop up if it can't do it, in which case you need to retreat the throttles. We don't need to. They're looking good. So rather than make you sit there and wait while we cross along the transit the coast, I will pause at the moment and I'll unpause when we're on approach into Santos Dumont. Okay, so I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, I come off the I came off the pause earlier than planned because look at the views. That's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. So we're cruising along about 250 knots, 15,000 feet. Engines are just under 80%. We during the climb, obviously, we turned the landing lights back off and we went to sync mode on the thrust modulation system. Yeah, how picturesque is that though? Really do need to fly this part of the world more often in the simulator. It's something else, it really is. Just check the volume levels because I've been bitten by that before recently where I've paused and come off pause and the volumes have been different because Windows waved its magic wand at me and said no, you shan't have consistent recording volumes. So shall we look outside as well. And happily cruising along in our BAE 146, watching the various beaches whistle past below us. Okay, so if we go and have a look at the charts, you can see we are actually in the standard terminal arrival route already. We need to descend for 10,000 feet or thereabouts at RJ307, so we can begin that happening now. So if we arm that, and then come off the throttle slightly, begin the descent. So we're looking at the descent right here, just trimming the aeroplane downwards. We could do this on indicated airspeed mode as well, and just pull the throttles back. So I'm going to turn off the head tracking because you want to be able to see everything without it wobbling around. So you can see the altitude is falling off. We're holding the same airspeed. If we want to reduce the descent rate while we're in indicated airspeed mode, we just increase thrust and watch the needle. Yeah, so we're coming along. We need to get down to 11,000 feet at least by RJ307. We can see on here how far away we are from it. He says, famous last words, if we press the flight plan button a few times. Is this actually tracking correctly? There we go. The next one will be 307 in a few minutes' time. These period accurate GPSs are quite wonderful in the information they don't give you. I remember flying up this canyon, or not canyon, but valley, exploring the beaches in the Waco biplane quite some time ago now. Is it the YMF5? Is that correct? Dredging my memory now. So down to 13,000 feet. Plenty of time to get down to lose a couple of thousand feet more. Let's just expedite that a little bit, pull off the throttle more and watch the descent rate drop. So half the reason for going to indicated airspeed mode at 250 knots is that prepares us to come down through 10,000 feet at the appropriate speed. Shall we go and double check while we're at it the barometric pressure at our destination? So if we open the airport up and go to weather, we can see it's 1015 or 2997 in old money or in inches. So we'll need to change this as we come down through. Now it's just double check that. Normally it would be on the approach chart, not the star. And we've got a transition altitude is 7,000 feet for here. Okay. So we need to go to 2997 as we come down through 7,000 feet. So looking at the chart though, we will be coming down through 7,000 feet during the star. So around Asalu, if that makes any sense. So we're at the appropriate altitude now, heading for 10,000, remember. So the airplane will drop another 1,000 and then level itself out. And we get to admire this wonderful scenery on the way. Shall we look from outside? Okay. So we will need to increase the throttle slightly in a moment to hold airspeed. So we'll probably want about 83, 84%. So our next target altitude is 8,000 feet when we get to RJ308. So we just hang on for a moment. So we need to increase throttle to stop the airplane from slowing down too much. How are we doing? So we're about to come through RJ307 and then that restriction goes away, and the next one is RJ308. So we'll go and arm 8,000 feet, getting ready for it. And we'll hold 250 knots again, so indicated airspeed mode, and we'll just pull the throttle back. And that will let the aeroplane drop. So I should probably explain why this approach is of significance. We'll see it better on the approach chart, obviously. So yeah, you've got some land here, a spit of land with a high peak. So you're coming in and avoiding going over too higher ground. If you go too early on the turn, there's a high point, and you'll be with, just too close to the ground. So you need to do this quite precisely. And then there's a turn just before the runway. The runway is not long either. So, you need to have your speed, attitude, everything organized before you get there. So we'll follow until we get to these final waypoints using the autopilot, and then we'll go fully manual for the turn. It's not too difficult. So how are we doing on the drop to 8,000 feet? Let's pull up the star again. So we've got lots of time until we get there. So then the next one is above 6,000 feet. So again, above 5,000, below 4,000. So we need to really target 4,000 for Mowgli after we pass through RJ308. Mowgli, sorry, not Mowgli. Mowgli. So after we pass through RJ308, we start descending for 4,000 feet and just do it in a timely manner. So I imagine that looks like about 1,000 feet a minute or so to get there. Okay, so we need to start increasing speed again because it's just switched to altitude hold mode automatically. So we need to hold on to some airspeed. I'm just monitoring the indicated airspeed needle there while I'm changing the throttle, just to stop it from either accelerating or decelerating. So we're down through 10,000 feet now, so the landing lights should be back on for commercial traffic. Should have done that a bit earlier, but oh well. So we said 7,000 feet, didn't we, for the transition altitude. So we're holding airspeed just about correctly. Keep an eye on the charts. Obviously we could do this, as I said, by watching the nav screen here. And when this switches over to from RJ308, we know we've gone through that altitude restriction and referring to the charts. So we should be there fairly quickly. Doesn't really give you much to go on, does it? So our next target, if you remember, is 4,000 feet when we get to the next... Oh, so for Movki, I should say. So let's arm 4,000. Wait for the GPS to flick over. Yep, we are now saying from RJ308 on our way to Asalu. So we can go to, we'll check the speed here, go to indicated airspeed mode, and pull the throttle back, and the airplane will start descending to the altitude, and we said about 1,000 feet a minute, so that's looking about right. You can see it wavering around, so we'll pull the throttle back a bit more. So we're coming down towards 7,000. So remember, we need to go and change the barometric pressures to make them accurate to the destination airfield on the way. Let's put the head tracking back on for a moment. Oh, well, no, it sim's frozen. Give it a moment. It will wake back up. There it goes. The head tracking is now on. We can look around. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to fly along that beach because we're heading out over the ocean now until we turn back in. So you can see the hills on the edge of the bay of Rio de Janeiro over there. So the airfield we're heading for is behind those hills. There's a big airport here, there's a little one just peeking out, and that's where we're going. So obviously we're heading out over the ocean to get the approach. Okay, so we're now heading on down, so we need to stay below, sorry, above 6,000, above 5,000, below 4,000. So yeah, we'll speed up just a little bit, just to slow that descent rate to make sure that we don't break that on the way through. I think we'll be fine. Yeah, we're nearly there anyway. So this scenery that we're using for Santos Dumont came from SimMarket. I've got it in a browser here. So the airport we left was Guarulhos, which was Sao Paulo, and that was from Gear Down Simulations. They've sent me a copy of it. The other one I purchased from SimMarket is Santos Dumont, and it's got, you can see it here, it says it's got city landmarks, so it's got various bits and pieces that append to the existing scenery to make it a little bit more realistic. So that'll be interesting to see when we get there. We'll go and have a look around with the drone camera. Okay, so let's go and get that out of the way. How are we doing on the descent? We're coming down 5,400 feet. So we are now below the transition altitude, so we need to go and correct that. (2997). Let's just turn the head tracking off for a moment, make sure we get all of these done correctly. So that's synchronized by the look of it. Was that one synchronized as well? Yes, it was. Okay, that's good to know. And center up the head tracking so it behaves itself. So above 5,000 at the next one. So we need to do altitude hold for a moment then. And then below 4,000 for Movgi. So we can probably switch over now. So we know when we get past RJ311 we descend to... So you can see there's various altitudes, but we'll basically wing it once we get to the final stages. So they're saying at 706 you need to be at 1,500 feet. So that's our next main target then. So we're just about to come through here, so we're going to get to 4,000 now. So we'll arm it again and go to indicated airspeed mode. So we actually need to be below 4,000 feet, so we'll go and arm 3,800 feet. We're going to stay high on purpose. So you can see Rio is appearing behind us. Now the Christ the Redeemer is up on the mountain top, but down on the edge of the harbour there's that rock we're going to have to avoid. So we're going in through the edge of the harbour, and then there's a hilltop as well we have to avoid before turning in for the runway, which is what makes this so interesting. So we're just following the numbers at this point. So as we said, we get down to 1,500 feet by the time we're making our turns through the harbour entrance. Let's just have a little check around. We've got the lights on. We've got the barometric pressure done. Airplane should be turning left anytime soon. And when it does so, we will go and retarget. So we're in altitude hold. We're dropping a little bit of speed, which is fine. We'll just hold that speed. So as soon as we straighten up out of this turn, we'll go and reset down to 1,500 feet. So we'll arm that as our next target altitude. So there, at the moment the airplane's just in a very gentle descent, which is fine. Put the head tracking on. So you can see now the harbour is coming. So we'll go indicated airspeed mode. We're about 225 knots at the moment. Are there any speed restrictions on the way in, by the way? Does it say much? It doesn't really, does it? No. I think it's pretty much on you as the pilot. So let's bring this down now to... We've got 2,000 feet to lose. So we look at the chart, you can see we're flying out towards this point, and then we'll turn in, and then we're on a straight line. When we get a little bit closer on this straight track into the harbour entrance, I will turn off the autopilot and start flying it itself. There's a cable car from the rock across the inlet there. We'll see that when we get closer. There's all sorts of buildings as well. It'd be fascinating actually to see what this airport upgrade has given us. So if we zoom in, you can see there's the runway. So we need to come in and do an S-bend around this raised rock and bring us in, but obviously do it safely. So it's going to be interesting.
2500.
So let's center the view up, make sure everything's ready to go. What I might do is sit down, press F12, and then if I sit up, I get to see more. It's interesting actually working with a head tracker. When you reset it, you don't always get it where you want it. So we're about on target. So I'm going to come off the autopilot. I want to lose some speed. So let's use the spoilers to do that. So you can see that this little island.
Speed checked below 205. Select flaps 18. Speed check
Done.
below 205. Select gear down.
Get down. So you can see this island is raised, which makes it interesting because you're not supposed to get too close to it.
Speed checked below 180. Select flaps 24. Speed checked below 170. Select flaps 30.
So I'm bringing the speed off I'm bringing the speed off deliberately. I can't talk at the moment.
Cabin is secure.
Oh, there's a bit of a crosswind going on. Not too much though.
Plus 100. Minimums. 50, 30, 20, 10.
Ground idle. Brake pressure seen. Yellow and green spoilers. 80 knots. 60 knots.
There we go. So we'll taxi out across, and now we're going to get to see some of these improvements. This looks amazing actually. They have really done a number on this, haven't they? Very, very good. Hugely impressed. Obviously we'll have a look around in a moment with the drone camera. So it looks like they've rebuilt a lot of the buildings nearby as well. Some really lovely terminal buildings here as well. Wow. Gonna have some fun with the drone camera in a moment. I just realised we've only got stairs, haven't we? We haven't got any fittings to use with the jet bridge. Anyway, we left the APU running during our flight because it was such a short flight anyway. So we can just go and shut down the engines and it won't cause us any grief, or not too much grief anyway. Why has that done that? Interesting. Okay, so if we put the tablet back in place, I think, well, we can just leave the airplane as it is. We're not going to work down through the whole shutdown sequence, because our main area of interest now, if we just come and make this go back on the back of the airplane. It's interesting what the drone camera does while you're not watching it, isn't it? So we can now go and have a look around. So this is Santos Dumont from SimMarket, and it really does look pretty spectacular, doesn't it? So they've done the breakwaters, obviously. All sorts of ancillary buildings and, oh my word, diggers and trucks and tractors, and they've gone a bit off the deep end with it, haven't they? It's a cargo terminal here. Service terminal. There's a CJ4 being worked on, and King Air by the look of it. This is the bit I'm interested in now, is having a look in some of these buildings. So should we try and walk up the jetway and see if we can? So if I slow the camera down a bit. Let's see how we get on with pretending to walk along the jetway. It's like going on holiday, isn't it? Okay, obviously the door won't work, so we'll smash our head straight through it. Go and read the... Very cool. They've made up the screens and everything. Oh, there's an X-Plane advert, and Flight Simulator, and SimMarket, obviously. Very cool. Look at this terminal. This reminds me a little bit of Frankfurt, actually, in the design. There's a very similar structure in Frankfurt Airport. So if we carry on down... Oh, look, there's a security scanner with animated people walking through it now and again. Well, I presume that's what was going on. Does that guy walk all the way along? Or maybe it's not a scanner, it's just he walks through the walls in a ghostly fashion. Yeah, I'm afraid he does. Oh well. Still cool though. Here he comes again. And he seems to have, oh my word, that's horror movie eyes, isn't it? So if we go out that way, that just goes back down to the ground. Let's speed our camera up a little bit. So, okay, so I don't think they've modelled the interior of the main building, it's just this glass bit, but it's still very impressive. So if we fly out through the end, Aeroporto Santos Dumont. So, but they have done the interior in here though, look. Oh my word. Yeah, okay, they've cut corners here. Obviously, because, you know, you don't really want to go and model in an entire cafe, do you? Or maybe you do. And they've done some rather crafty tricks with the people, look. Very good. And then, oh my word, the airport just goes on and on, doesn't it? I will say Santos Dumont was quite expensive compared to some of the other airports I've bought, so I'm quite glad that it is so good, because it repays the investment. So there's a CRJ of some description there, and a Learjet, a King Air that looks a bit beaten up. Makes you wonder what we're going to discover next on our journey down the airport, doesn't it? Okay, very, very intricate designs on the roofs and satellite dishes and aerials. Very cool. Flags. Lighting gantries. So if we speed this up further, we can make further progress quickly to get to areas to go exploring. So it would appear, yeah, they've put a lot of 3D structures in then to support the scenery. So I mentioned earlier about cable cars. There's a tank farm down here. So if we speed this up as much as we can fly across. Oh, let's go over here first and have a look. So there's a football ground here on this edge of the airfield. Very cool. And a swimming pool. It's all nicely modelled. So what we're really going to look for is the cable car over here, which it mentioned in the notes of the video. So we're just flying out. Oh yes, you can see the cable cars. Very, very cool. And they are animated. That's really cool. I like that. Because this was missed out of the Flight Simulator scenery, and I know various friends had seen it in earlier versions of Flight Simulator in custom scenery and said, oh, it was quite poor that it was missing. But I think they were expecting kind of the world on a stick, really, from the new simulator. So there you go. Should we have a look and see what this looks like in low light as well? So if we go back into the weather and advance time on into the evening. And we'll put that to one side for the moment. It's very cool, isn't it? Just trying to slow my controller down a little bit. It's way too fast at the moment. Where we went jetting off across the landscape. There we go. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. So we started off at the international airport over in Sao Paulo, flew along the coast in the 146, and I ended up at Santos Dumont. So yes, 2 airports featured in one video. and a little bit of flying the 146 in the middle. So yes, I've always loved coming into this airport. I've done it several times with group flights. It's a challenge to do it properly on that particular approach. Obviously the weather needs to agree with it, but to do it properly on that approach and to follow the path correctly is quite a busy workload. And you know, to get your airplane stopped as well in the area available. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.